Greetings, and welcome to the Nexus. Welcome to my how to play video for my battle style card game, Scattered Nexus. I'll be teaching you how to play your first game and save some of the more complicated stuff for the next video. Scattered Nexus is a battle style card game based on a growing list of indie comics. You can play it on PlayingCards.io, which is a free web browser game. You can also get a print and play version by joining my Discord or email list. Setup is easy. Regardless of which version you play, make sure that all cards are separated into stacks based on their comic, which is listed on the bottom right of every card. Each stack will have 10 cards and one title card talking a little bit about the comic. Players will select 2 comic stacks to make their deck. For your first game, I'd have one player pick 2 sci-fi comics, showing this icon, the other player picking these comics, showing this icon. Take the title card from both those stacks and set them close by. Then shuffle the remaining cards into a deck and put them into the player's deck zone. Then both players draw 5 cards from the top of their deck, and the battle can begin, with the player who last read a comic book going first. This is a life decking game. The objective of the game is to deal damage to your opponent's deck until it's empty before they do that to you. You have a deck zone where your deck goes, a discard pile where used or defeated cards will go, and a location zone where your location cards will end up. Then the rest of your board are just 5 card slots. The board isn't very complicated, so a game mat isn't really needed, but I do think they look pretty. Now that you have cards in hand, let me tell you what you're looking at. In this game, there are 3 types of cards you can play: black border, white border, and no border. They all have their card types printed on the bottom half of the card, but let me explain them from easiest to hardest. First, we have black border cards. These cards are your units. Black border cards are characters that have an impact number at the top left, which shows how strong they are when battling, as well as color icons below that show their color identity. Characters are all these colors at all times. Some have abilities and some don't. On your turn, you can play a character in front of one of your empty slots. It'll stay in play and protect you and fight for you. You put them in the front row because characters can take damage. They begin in the front, which means they haven't been hurt yet. If they ever get hurt, they'll go to the back row. And if they're hurt while in the back row, they'll go to their owner's discard pile. Next, we have white border cards. White border cards are tricky because they can be used in one of 2 ways. On your turn, you can play a white border card underneath a character. This is called adding a trait to that character. The trait ability gives the character a new power as long as the character's in play. Your title card will explain what it does in a little bit more detail. The other way to use the card is as an event. At any time, when you want the effect, play it into one of your empty slots and read out the event text and resolve it. After the ability is resolved, it'll stay in that slot until the end of the turn it was played. As long as it's in that slot, you can't play other cards there. Lastly, there's location cards, which are the trickiest cards to explain. On your turn, you can play a location to your location zone. It will provide an ongoing effect to a specific genre of character. It will have an icon in the text box showing what genre it affects. If you play a new location, you can put it on top of or below the location you already have in play. Just know that only your topmost location is your active location, and that's the only one that has any effect. So far, so good. These are the 2 rules that make locations so tricky. When a player takes damage, they would lose cards from their deck or hand equal to the damage they were taking. Locations count as 3 cards when resolving damage. Also, if a location goes to your discard pile, for any reason, it jumps out and goes to its owner's location zone. Players will alternate taking turns, each turn consisting of 5 phases. Ready phase. During this phase, you'll ready any of your exhausted characters, which doesn't mean anything right now, but remember for later. Second phase is the action phase. You can play cards from your hand into your 5 slots. You can play black border cards into the front of your empty slots, or traits under your characters in play. You can play events into your empty slots during this phase. However, I want to note that you can also play events at any phase of any player's turn, as long as you have an open slot for it. You can even play locations into your location zone. Lastly, you can set cards from your hand, face down. It's treated as a 1 impact character that has all the colors. There are a few reasons you might want to do this. I'll leave that for you to discover. You'll notice there are no costs on any cards you play. There's nothing stopping you from playing your whole hand every turn, aside from having space. If you do, and find yourself wanting to play a card, but all 5 of your slots are full, you can send characters you control to your discard pile to make room. You can't replace event cards, and it has to be done during your action phase to replace cards in this way. Next is the battle phase, which is broken into several steps. To show you, let's pretend I had this board state. I had these 4 characters, and my opponent had these 4. First step is to declare your attack color. The most often ignored step, but the step is important because it tells your opponent you're no longer in the action phase which gives them one last chance to use cards that have to be used during that phase. Then you get to the attack step, where you'll exhaust characters you control of the attacking color to battle your opponent and their characters. I'm going to attack with red and attack with these 3 characters. Just because a character is the attacking color doesn't mean it has to attack. Attacking characters are exhausted. 2 of these characters attack my opponent's deck, and 1 attack their Marie character. I do have 1 character with an attack ability. It says target character has -1 impact this turn, so I'll target Terry, making her 3 impact this turn. Then we look at the block and damage step. Now, the defending player has some choice to make. So if they didn't block anything, in this case, Marie would take 2 damage, hurting it twice, and she'd go to the discard pile. And the opponent would take 5 damage to their deck. 1, 2, then a location, which counts for 3, 4, 5, because locations count as 3 cards when resolving damage. But let's say my opponent wanted to block. They can block attacks targeting them with their ready characters. The defending player will exhaust any number of their ready characters, and they would battle a single attacking character. Characters only battle once per turn, so if they're blocked, they will no longer battle their original target. When characters battle, they damage each other equal to their impact. If they receive damage equal to or greater than their impact, they're hurt. If they receive double their impact worth of damage, they're hurt twice, usually going straight to the discard pile, regardless of where they were. So here, the opponent blocks target with Terry. Terry would usually do 4 damage, hurting target twice, but because it has -1 impact right now, it'll do 3 damage, hurting it only once. Terry would take 2 damage, which isn't enough to hurt her. If a character is being attacked, the defending player may block a single character attacking with what's called a player block. Blocking players receive damage equal to the character they blocked. Players can only block 1 character this way per turn. So in this case, the opponent will block for Marie, losing 2 cards to protect 1. Then this last block should be easy, blocking that 3 with a 1. The 1 would die, but at least they aren't going to take 3 damage, right? Wrong. Sometimes, face-down cards have flip effects, mostly in horror decks. If the face-down character has a flip effect, it can be flipped up during its battle with a character or player before damage is dealt. So for example, this one says to destroy battling character. So Gage goes straight to the discard pile, and Alex and Boots take no damage during the damage step, because the character it was battling isn't there anymore. Defending player will 1 at a time resolve each attacking character, resolving a battle with that character, and then resolving the damage. And that's the end of the battle phase. So let's go to the cleanup phase, where any ability that says to the end of the turn ends, and all players' events are sent to their owner's discard pile. Then the last phase of the turn is the draw phase, where you'll draw cards from your deck until you have 5 cards in hand. Have more than 5 cards in your hand, you'll drop down to 5. Drop cards from your hand into your discard pile until you have 5. This doesn't count as discarding cards. Now that you have a new hand, feel free to plot as your opponent starts their turn. Anyway, with that, I think you're ready to play. If there are any questions you have about the game, please leave it in the comments and I'd love to answer it. So get out there, find your favorite comic combo, and play some games. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next world.